Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. We're just going to give it another minute or so just to let people join. We'll give it another minute. But thank you all so much for coming this morning. We'll just give it another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll get started. Perfect. So we'll get started, and then anyone joining hopefully will be able to get into the chat. So welcome everyone. Welcome to our Reaching New Heights webinar for Copilot for Microsoft 365. My name is Peter McLeavery. I'm a solutions architect here at Cybit. I'm really excited. We've got some really great stuff to content to show you today. Just before we get started in terms of the actual content for Copilot, I'm aware that there'll be some people on the call today that will be, unaware of Cybit and might not be, customers or partnering with Cybit at the minute. So just a quick introduction of us. So we are a managed service provider. We're a sort of cloud-first consultancy-led business. We've got offices all across the country. So our head office is based up there in Newcastle. We've got our office down in Thatcham, Belfast and Glasgow. For us, we provide a whole range of services across really those four key pillars you can see on the screen there. So managed IT, cloud, data and analytics, and cybersecurity. To sort of pinpoint a few sort of certifications and some of our background, over 150 employees. We're ISO 27001 certified, and we've really got some great certifications and partnerships with some of those key vendors. I guess in terms of today's call, focusing on Copilot and Microsoft, we're a Microsoft Solutions Designation partner. We've got badges with Modern Work and Azure as well. And on the call today, in terms of your speakers, myself, Peter McLeavery. So like I said, I'm a solutions architect here at Cybit. Got just over 6 years of experience around the real focus around the Modern Work and Azure side of Microsoft. And joining me today was Sean Taylor, who is a cloud solution architect from TD Synnex. We work really closely with TD around our sort of partnership, and Sean will be going through about a 15-20 minute demo of Copilot just to really show you the capabilities of the tool itself. And just to quickly run through the agenda and hopefully what you'll take away from today's session. So we're going to go through a bit of an overview of Copilot, what it is, what those sort of key functionalities and features that sit within that license, and then understanding what license requirements are involved. We're going to spend some time looking at the best practices around security and compliance. Now, with Copilot, it can be as sort of simple as, purchase a license, assigning that license to a user. But with Copilot leveraging, your business data, it's really important to have those sort of security parameters and controls in place. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and some of those sort of do's and don'ts, with that sort of thing. We'll then look at various use cases, sort of identify where Copilot can fit within your business, not just within a certain role or department, but actually across multiple departments and roles within an organization. That will nicely follow on to the actual demonstration where we'll, take that into a bit more depth and show you some of the great features that sit within some of those key applications that you'll be using. And then just lastly, we'll finish on a little bit of a readiness plan. So we'll look at, sort of those next steps you can take as a business working with Cybit on your Copilot for Microsoft 365 journey. So just before we get started, again, I'm going to do a few polls as we go through this, just to really break the session up and get some, have a look at some questions and some insights around that. So I'm just going to launch the first one here. So hopefully you can see that on screen. So really around how familiar are you at this current stage with Copilot for Microsoft 365? Not familiar, I've heard of it moderately, or are you at the minute an expert level of that? And we'll give a sort of 15 seconds or so we can go through those polls. Perfect. So I think the consensus is you've heard of it, or a few moderately familiar, but for the most part, it is a brand new product or something you're looking into, which is great. Hopefully, we can share some really great insight on today's session. So let's start, I guess, with the question of what is Copilot for Microsoft 365? Well, it's designed to be your AI work assistant, which integrates into the core 365 application stack that you'll be using on your day-to-day. So the likes of those applications you can see on screen, Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams. And it does this by using what's called natural language, combining large language models, which interacts with your data with what's called the Microsoft Graph. And we'll talk a little bit about the Microsoft Graph in a bit more detail through those Microsoft applications themselves. It's also got the ability, as you see on the icon on the screen with the internet, to leverage the internet to include web-based content when responding to a user's prompt. Now, this can be really useful when, if you want to look to improve the quality of the response you get back from Copilot. It's worth noting, however, that this feature is something that's disabled when you enable Copilot by default, and it's something you can enable if you wish so. Now, as well as talking about, I guess, what Copilot for Microsoft 365 is, it's probably worth mentioning what it isn't, and how I get a lot of questions around how does this compare to the likes of, ChatGPT, for example. Many of you here today are probably familiar or have used ChatGPT in the past. GPT uses large language models. However, the key difference here is with Copilot, it's leveraging the Microsoft 365 applications, but it's connecting to your data through the Microsoft Graph. Copilot isn't connecting your data to GPT or any open models. Microsoft have their own exclusive instances of these models. They are housed in-house outside of the reach of OpenAI, really to keep that interaction, I guess, as secure as possible. There's a diagram I've included in a couple of slides' time, really just to to visualize and emphasize what's going on behind the scenes with that interaction. Before we go into that, I just want to dive a little bit deeper into the Microsoft Graph, because I believe this is a really key important feature within that Copilot journey. So now with the Graph, I guess you could almost look at it as the gateway, if you will, to the data intelligence within Microsoft 365. It uses models to access data across the Microsoft ecosystem, which includes those sort of core 365 services, and provides the LLM with that additional information about the relationships and activities over your business data. Now, it's worth mentioning with that access, you can actually ask Copilot or protect it from looking at certain things like indexing certain SharePoint sites. So you do have control over that, but the access that you do give Copilot, both from a sort of company indexing perspective, will allow Copilot to look and help you through processing that data. Now, the semantic index plays a sort of crucial part in all of this. So the semantic index sort of connects you with the relevant information, within your organization, and it's sort of built on that, what Microsoft classes their comprehensive security approach. So security, compliance, and privacy. And with that, it sort of respects and represents all of those organizational boundaries that you have in place in your tenant. So if you don't have access to, let's say, a certain document, you're not going to be able to leverage it with Copilot. It's not giving you any additional permissions or authority, within your tenant. Which also brings me on to, an important point around ensuring that those, policies and those roles are in place in the first place. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that when we talk about security and compliance. So I've included this diagram just to represent sort of how Copilot is working behind the scenes. And as you can see, it's sort of made up of those three core components. So you've got the Microsoft 365 apps, you've got the large language model, and then you've got the Microsoft Graph. And Copilot, as you see represented in the middle and that icon, is probably a good place to put it because it's sort of acting as that sort of orchestration engine between all three of these components. So the process always starts with the user's prompt, as you can see represented in the first step. That then goes to the Microsoft Graph in a process called grounding. Now, what this is about is to improve the prompt given by the user. It will then call on the graph to pull any relevant data aligned to the semantic index from the relationships that it's created between the data and what it understands from the user's prompt itself. It will then modify this, send it to the LLM for some reasoning over that information before it then goes through what's called a post-processing grounding stage, checking all of the security functionality before it sends that prompt back to the user. So hopefully that's just a quick high level of how that really works as part of the sort of onboarding journey. If you really want to sort of get under the hood of how some of these components are working with some of the applications, that's something we would be able to show you and represent. So in terms of licensing, Copilot for Microsoft 365 is an add-on license which you can add to one of the the base licenses you see listed on screen there. I'm going to do another poll just to get an idea of, again, some of the licensing that you may have in place at the minute. So let me just quickly launch this one here. Perfect. So the majority, so a little bit of business standard, some business premium, and then the majority Office E3, E5 is sort of changing a little bit. Perfect. That's great. So prior to sort of January this year, the Copilot was only available to enterprise licenses. So the Microsoft 365 E3s, E5s. Microsoft have now extended this availability across some of the SMB licensing. So allowing it to be added to SKUs such as business standard, business premium, as well as now you see some of the educational SKUs as well, so A3, A5. It's worth pointing out on the educational piece, although you can add Copilot to educational licenses, there is no educational pricing available for Copilot at this current time. So it's that commercial license just with the ability to add it to an educational license. And then although, yes, I can add it to a business standard license, there are several security features and functionality that you wouldn't have access to if you had a business standard license. So as part of that onboarding, one thing that we would recommend is, even if you had some of the other licenses, is to do a bit of a licensing review. And now this isn't just to say, right, okay, trying to upsell you a license for the sake of it. It's really just to identify and outline some of the security functionality and controls that you're maybe missing out on and some of the risks associated with that when, not just with Copilot, but, in general around your sort of overall security posture. So that's something we would definitely recommend that we do. And then also lastly around the licensing in terms of that seat cap. Again, prior to January, there was a 300 user seat cap. Now you can add as little as one. For that sort of POC testing phase across your organization, we probably recommend anywhere between 5 to 25 licenses. It really obviously does depend on the size of your business. That might be a little less, a little bit more. But really what you want to do ultimately is get that exposure across your current organization, across the different departments, just so you can really help with that user adoption and get good coverage, to really build upon that Copilot success across your business. So for organizations, there's sort of two flavors of Copilot. It's also probably worth mentioning that you may have seen other Copilots, so Copilot for sales, Copilot for security is another big one that's recently been released. For the purposes of this webinar, we're going to focus on Copilot for Microsoft 365 and then what used to be called Bing for Chat Enterprise. But if you are interested in getting more information in any of those other Copilots that you may have seen, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to do a bit more of an in-depth one-to-one session. As you can see from the chart, the sort of key differences between these two is, I guess, you've got the priority model access, but it's Copilot sitting within the applications, being able to leverage your data information through the Microsoft Graph. For the sort of free Copilot, what it's really around is that sort of web grounding. So that is utilizing things like web sources to gather that information rather than being able to access your data to pull certain business documents, say from your OneDrive and your SharePoint. I guess one thing I did want to point out that you do get with sort of the Copilot free version is that commercial data protection. I guess that's one of the key differences between, say, inputting some business data into that over the likes of something like ChatGPT, where it's an open model. You wouldn't want to put your business data in there for it to learn from. So I have had some conversations with people where Copilot, the free version, could be a good starting point if you are, brand new to sort of AI and you want to sort of learn a bit about the prompts and how it's sort of gathering some of that information. It could be a really great starting point. So now we've looked at the licensing. Like I've been saying, a really important step and section when it comes to Copilot is around security and compliance. Now, out of the box, Copilot will inherit any security, any compliance and privacy policies that you have in place in your tenant. So what it's important to do is, to ensure that they are in place, but also to have a bit of a review to make sure they are up to, sort of best practice and standards, so it's got good coverage across your tenant and your organization. So if we look at a few sort of key steps that's recommended, if we look at the first one, looking at governing access to Copilot through things like identity. So looking at things like if you've got any overprivileged users, over risky users maybe in the organization, evaluating things like login attempts, requiring multi-factor authentication across your user base within your organization, at a minimum for any privileged users, but ideally, across that full user base in the tenant. Moving then into mitigating device risk. So again, ensuring applications are securely installed on devices. Maybe even things like limiting the use of certain applications or even Copilot on things like personal devices. So if you've got any people in your organization on that sort of bring your own device model, maybe limiting their access, to what data and documents they can see. Then preventing business information and restricting action. So again, things like that sort of processing of data. Copilot's going to inherit things like sensitivity, documents applied by sensitivity labeling. Again, important that they are in place for any really sensitive or critical data that you have. And then the sort of discover and control around the risk of applications in your organization with things like Defender for Cloud Apps. So it's really about, having a good foundational layer of security in place that you can really build upon. And the Microsoft 365 base license plays a really important part of that, really because it determines what security controls you have at your disposal. So if we start with the sort of the smaller SMB SKUs, so business standard, business premium, business standard is what we have, what we would call sort of baseline security level. So very limited for managing things like device management because it doesn't have that in tune, can't push out policies because it doesn't have conditional access. So, it's very limited in controlling the security of things like data. For example, what else have we got? We've got things like basic content and keyword search, whereas with business premium, you get all of that, plus things like, again, conditional access for controlling access via, let's say, certain locations or network access, having sensitivity labeling for any sensitive documentation, maybe litigation hold policies for, making sure data is not being modified or deleted. And then I've included this table more for reference, but just to hopefully, help you picture really the key differences between these two licenses specifically. And, saying, yes, I can add Copilot to a business standard license, Cybit, and our recommendation is to look at that business premium really as that sort of entry, not just to Copilot, but across the stack because of the additional features that it gives you. So, you're thinking things like device management, you've got the email security with things like Defender for Office, antivirus with Defender for Endpoint. So it's that sort of complete package that allows all of those security parameters to really be, covered with Copilot and again in your general security posture. Moving forward now with the enterprise licensing side of things. So again, similar in terms of the baseline, and it provides a sort of baseline core and then that best-in-class security controls. So Office 365 E3, again, quite basic in terms of the security controls you have at your disposal. The key differences there with the Office, for those who aren't aware, Office 365 E3 and Microsoft 365 E3, the key difference there is the enterprise mobility and security suite of products. There's also some additional security things around email and endpoint with some of these E5s, for instance. So, but you do get things like Intune for device management. You get things like protecting those and pushing out policies with additional access, information protection, DLP with Purview. So again, all of these are really important features. And then from that sort of best-in-class approach with E5, there's some things like risk-based, automatic labeling, Defender for Cloud Apps for, again, those protecting your apps against cybersecurity threats. So there's a whole bunch of different security controls available at your disposal. One thing, again, that we can offer is a sort of license review. So regardless of whether you're on a standard, premium, not just reviewing, making sure those features are turned on and enabled, but you're really, understanding the key differences between one license and the other, and why, upgrading might be a good approach to improve your current posture. So preparing your data, as well as talking about the security, preparing the data is an also really important step. Making sure that business data is not only protected, but more importantly, accessible to Copilot. I'm going to run another quick poll just to identify where your business data currently sits. So give me a second here. You just launched this. So where is the bulk of your current data at the minute? Is it within Microsoft 365 in OneDrive and SharePoint? Is it on-premise on a file server, maybe a NAS, another cloud storage? Or if it is other, please pop it in the chat and we can discuss that in the questions. Perfect. So the majority is in OneDrive and SharePoint, which is what we want to see. So we're already sort of halfway there, and ensuring Copilot can pull that right, file or information. Like I said, the data needs to be accessible within your Microsoft 365 tenant. So this means having, like I said, business data within those storage areas, so the likes of OneDrive and SharePoint. So if you have any data, anyone has any data on this call that maybe is outside of that first step is really going to look to centralize that into Microsoft 365. And along with that step is completing a sort of data inventory. That's going to be a really an important step in this process. Clearing out what Microsoft call any sort of digital debt, digital clutter, over the years, multiple documents, maybe irrelevant documents that can be removed. I mean, at worst, it's going to improve that sort of capacity of storage, but really from a Copilot perspective, it's really going to help improve the accuracy of the results you get back, because it's looking at more accurate, up-to-date, hot data rather than data that's been, collected over years. So that data inventory is another really important step. And then the last thing there is classifying data. You want to ensure you're applying, the appropriate policies and controls for proper data management, and this will help you really, establish a robust foundation, sort of data foundation, within your Microsoft 365 tenant, and aligning that to any sort of business policies that you have in place around data. And an action for this could be things like, classifying that data into different categories. So you've got personal, it might have financial, confidential data, and the better the data structure is, the better Copilot can search through it, improving, the output that you're going to get. And just lastly, on the security side of things, what is Cybit's recommended approach? And for us, it really comes down to zero trust. The zero trust security strategy sort of teaches and treats each connection and resource request as if it's almost originated from an uncontrolled bad network. Regardless of where the request originates or where, the resources you're using to access, zero trust is the principle of never trust, always verify. And the image you can see on screen is a sort of diagram of the architecture behind zero trust. So you are applying the zero trust policies for Copilot across the entire architecture. So from users and devices to the application data that you have access to. So This really comes down to 7 principles. You've got data protection, so preventing, your business data from being at risk of any overexposure, maybe oversharing of data. There's features within Microsoft Purview, such as sensitivity labeling, data classification. You've got e-discovery in there. Again, all of this stuff could really help. Moving then with identity and access. So again, preventing any unwanted users from getting access to the data by Copilot. So again, that might be requiring MFA for all users, blocking things like legacy authentication could really help with this. App protection, ensuring rules are in place for your business data to ensure those apps are, safe, contained within the managed application. Things like app protection policies. Device management, ensuring all of those devices are enrolled and secure within Microsoft Intune. Again, certain policies pushed out to restrict certain access or non-compliant devices, monitoring and wiping data from any devices that maybe have left the business. You've then got threat protection. Threat protection could be around sort of email, blocking things like device-based attacks, responding to threats. Securing collaboration. So if you're using Microsoft Teams as a sort of internal communication platform, again, identifying certain teams or projects that warrant high, sensitive protection and applying those, and even introducing things like, external sharing policies. So yes, I might be able to attach and share documents and files with anyone within my organization, but actually if I've got, if I'm talking to anyone who's an external user outside, I might be blocked from, uploading or sharing a document within my organization. And then just lastly, around user permissions to data. Really, what that's based across is this just enough access, just enough access for people to access files, but also in terms of roles, in terms of being able to do their job. So, I've seen quite a lot of privileged users and some tenants. So again, reviewing that to make sure people haven't got these elevated roles. And if they need them, maybe they don't need them all the time. And there's solutions built into Microsoft. One, for example, called PIM, Privileged Identity Management, which is about sort of allowing users to request that access. You give them that access for a short amount of time, then it goes. It's not a constant, role that's assigned to them and left with them all the time. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavor around some of the, the importance and some of the security controls that you can put in place. And now we've covered that, I just want to explore some of the use cases. For me, Copilot isn't just a solution for, a certain department or a couple of users within that department. There's really value across multiple departments and more specifically, multiple roles within those departments for Copilot. And a good way to, I guess, represent this is impact by function. So if we take, I'm going to take sales as an example here. So myself as a solutions architect, part of my role, I might schedule in a call with the customer to, let's say, to discuss a new opportunity. Now, I might schedule that call in with Microsoft Teams, and then while on the call, I'll have, it recorded. I might have transcribing enabled, to collate the notes, and I might also be taking some personal notes on a OneDrive or maybe a Word document. Now, following that meeting, I might ask Copilot to collate those notes for me. Maybe the next stage from there is to put together a draft proposal that I need to present to the customer. So I can put that and get that to draft me that in Word. I then might want it to present me a sort of presentation form of that so I can present that back to the customer. So I could ask it within PowerPoint, within Copilot, create me a presentation based on this file and reference that file. And then from there, I can take some of the notes and, maybe ask some certain questions around some of the meeting if there's certain things I need to follow up on. So what it's really about is, starting from that initial meeting, just allowing me to be a lot more efficient, effectively making it so that you never have to start with that sort of blank piece of paper and you can use all the resources at your disposal and really bring those all together. I've got another example here with taking HR as an example and just how it can be used across some of the other different applications as well. So, for example, Word, in HR, I might need to create, job adverts and job descriptions. So I might ask Copilot to create me a job description. I might list some bullet points that it can start drafting out one for me. I can also do stuff like reference documents. So if I've got previous job descriptions, something that might remain, within all of them might be something like the company benefits. So rather than having to go through those documents, copy and paste or rewrite it, I can ask Copilot to reference a certain document to pull that key information out. I've then got things like Copilot Chat. So I might have, CVs that I might want to pull out certain skills and experience to find the right, the best suited candidates. Teams, I might host the meeting on Teams, again, having those recorded and scribed for me so I can, maybe send it to other people in the organization. So instead of them having to watch the full interview, if they have any questions, they can get it summarized. So again, just a few examples, and hopefully during the demo, we can dive into a few more of these in a bit more depth. But before we go on to the demo, I just want to sort of quickly discuss prompting, because I believe from a successful rollout of Copilot, prompting is a really key factor in this. And this sort of refers to inputting text that you're giving Copilot. Now, to get the best results, you really want to give it some clear, structured prompts in order to get the best output. So things like providing specific instructions to Copilot regarding, let's say, a certain topic, the purpose of that topic, maybe even the tone. Using examples with clear and specific key phrases. What you don't want to do is, be too vague, ultimately, or not provide enough context or information in your prompt, that you're requiring to pull the right detail from it. So again, as part of this onboarding, we've got some access to some prompt sheets of sort of do's and don'ts. There's also some tooling that's being developed and is out there. One off the top of my head is one called Prompt Buddy, where you can sort of, if you are using certain prompts and you're having success with them, you can share them within your organizational realm for other users who are also maybe trialing Copilot can look at and maybe try themselves. And what this is ultimately to do is to make sure that everyone that's on this sort of adoption phase is getting the success. What you don't want is some people will have really good success because they're toning certain prompts in a certain way and getting really good information. Some people might not. So it's about trying to collate that in one place, maybe rate them, and so everyone gets the same great experience. And here's a few examples of some basic starter prompts that you can do. So things like recapping a meeting, summarizing an email thread. One example, you get anyone who's been tagged in an email and you look back and there's sort of 15 prior emails, quite common. Getting Copilot to help sort of collate some of that information within that thread, so you don't have to go through and search through that. It might be even things like revising a certain document. So again, I might have a document that I've written out, and I might just want it to be a bit more simplified. Maybe the tone of it is a bit wrong. In prior, I might have sent that to someone who's an IT manager. Maybe I want to send it to the financial director. Maybe I adjust the tone to make it, take some of those technical words out, adjust the sayings a little bit. And as well as doing that with some of the prompts, I guess from a feature availability perspective, I just wanted to represent at this current stage the applications that Copilot can currently work with, and obviously the features as well that you can currently utilize. So things like, with some of them with Word, drafting, creating new content, doing things like summarizing content, asking questions about that as well. And as this product grows, expect to see additional features added, as well as potentially new applications. So that leads me onto the demonstration. Let me just double check. Andy, have we got
Morning,
Peter. Here we go. Hey, Sean, how are you doing?
I'm good. See yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you. Perfect. Yeah, are we all ready to go with the demo? Or?
Yeah. Slight hiccup this morning in the fact that I'm using my corporate laptop rather than my demonstration device. So this could be the most spectacular resignation you've ever seen live on air. So I've got to be slightly careful specifically with Teams and Outlook, but I think I've got it set up in such a way that I won't show me petticoats too much, if you see what I mean.
No worries.
So if I well, first of all, thanks to the guys at Cybit for inviting me to do this. My name's Sean Taylor. I'm a Microsoft Cloud Solutions Architect at TD Synex, and we are one of the distribution partners for Cybit with Microsoft. I'm lucky enough to have been using Copilot since November of last year, and I've got some tips and tricks, insights. Some of you might find it interesting, some of you might not find it interesting. It depends on, what your primary use case for Copilot is going to be. So whether it's catching up with stuff from when you've been off, whether that's summarizing content, whether that's creating or amending content, it's slightly difficult to hit the right demonstration for absolutely everybody in there. I'm going to try and give you a broad church. But obviously, if there are any things that you specifically want to see and I've not covered, if you want to bob them in the Q&A, and if I have the capability to do it, I will absolutely do it. So I'm sort of going to jump around a bit, so please bear with me. So if I just share my screen, that's all right, Peter?
Yeah, sure.
We'll play Teams Bingo now. So can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Hopefully they're all on mute, so the answer should be no. But thank you very much for that, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start very bravely in Outlook, and I have permission from the people involved in order to be able to use this specific email as a example. So to Peter's point, if you are sort of like dropped into an email thread, that if I scroll down, you can see is quite lengthy and has been going on for a considerable amount of time. If I just actually pop back up to the top, because I have a Copilot license, I get the click option for summarize with Copilot. So that's going to take that email thread, and it's going to have a look through it for what it believes to be the key points that I need to be made aware of. Now, the content is always generated by Copilot. Copilot obviously is not autopilot, so it's not going to do everything for you, but it does come with a caveat, and the caveat is to check to make sure you're comfortable with that content prior to its use. So just be careful with that, because obviously it's not 100% accurate 100% of the time. I'm filling horrendously while this takes significantly longer than usual in order to do this. Just to give you a bit of background, interestingly, if several of you on this call ask Copilot the same question with the same prompt in the same application, you are likely to get slightly different answers, and that's to do with how ChatGPT-4 powers the entire solution. So what it typically does at the moment is it looks for suggested answers, and it typically generates anywhere between 3 and 6, and then sort of it appears to be random, randomly chooses which it thinks is the most suitable for that particular scenario. So I've done an exercise with some of my co-workers where we've used a Word document to create a PowerPoint presentation using exactly the same prompt, using exactly the same PowerPoint presentation template and the same source document. 2 of us got 22 slides. One person got 23 slides and I got 32 slides. Now, when Microsoft update the model to ChatGPT-5 later on this year, what we will find is it won't be a revolution. Not a lot's going to change, but what we should find is it's much more consistent with that answer base. So rather than it being a top 6, it might be a top 2, and it will select pretty much the same answer every single time. So now that I've filled horrendously, And I see we've got that little note there about the fact that this is AI generated content, so therefore might not be correct. It's actually summarized that email down. Well, it summarized that email down into 5 lines, significantly quicker than I could have read the entire thing. And because I've done this demonstration lots of times, I actually know that summary is absolutely 100% accurate. So that's one thing that you can do with Outlook. So that's creating a summary of a lengthy email chain with Outlook. If I actually go to a new email, so what I want to do this time is I'm going to use the Copilot icon and I'm going to create a draft with Copilot. And I've already, for the benefit of time, I've already sort of pre-populated this. So this is to create a sales email outlining the benefits of a particular service. And that service is this Word document. And a minute, not this Word document. There you go. So no smoke and mirrors. This actually does really exist and there is some stuff in it. Okay, so if I just bob back to Outlook, and you'll notice that what I've done is I've referenced that file using a slash there. Okay, you can, if you use the slash, that brings up the recently used file list, and you can pick from recently used files. However, what you can also do is you can quite simply go to the file, right click it, hit share, get the share URL, and instead of doing the slash and the name of the file, you can quite literally just put the share name in, and then that basically tells it where to go. So either will work, and I am going to attempt to do both during these demonstrations. Nice to see that it's been really quick this morning. However, it's significantly quicker than what I could do with my limited 2-finger typing capability. So chat amongst yourselves while this takes a while to create some stuff. And this is we want to show it warts and all. So this is the email that has been generated based on what I asked it to do plus the reference of the file. And that's a really good point that Peter mentioned earlier on with regards to if you have reference material that helps Copilot be more specific, then it's a really useful thing to use. If I just hit the edit prompt down at the bottom, I do actually get some options here. So I could actually make it longer. I can make it shorter. I could make it sound more formal. I could make it sound more direct. I can make it sound more casual. Or I'm not even sure why this is an option. Obviously, somebody at Microsoft thinks they're funny. We could actually turn that into a poem. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to ask it to regenerate that content and turn that into a poem. And what we will be able to do when the content is generated, we'll be able to toggle between the two options. So brilliant. So this is the poem. Does it even rhyme? Succeed, need, succeed. I suppose loyalty and journey. That's a bit of a stretch for a rhyme, isn't it? Azure and ignore. Ooh, again, yeah, I'm not entirely certain about that one. And as I say, up here we've got the little 2 of 2, so we've got 1 of 2. So let's say that I'm happy with the first version. I can say keep it. So that again gives me the content. And what I can also do, once I've drafted with Copilot, I can coach with Copilot. So coaching with Copilot is going to look at how I have drafted that email, and it's going to provide recommendations with regards to things like tone and clarity. There may be a third one. And it's going to give me suggestions with regards to how I can tweak that email in order for it to be better received by the audience that I am targeting. So tone, reader sentiment, and clarity. So the email tone is informative but lacks excitement and passion for a new service. So there's a suggestion, and if I hit the regenerate option, it would regenerate. And then I can go to reader sentiment, which has got pretty much the same stuff in it. Yeah, there's not a great deal. So there is a couple of recommendations there, and then I could hit regenerate in order to get a new email. So for me, those are the 3 key points within Outlook: how to summarize a fairly lengthy email, how to create an email using existing content, and then how to analyze that content in order to provide a better reference. So that's our Outlook. We'll go back to that one in a minute, and that's our file that we were using just now. So the next one is probably my favourite. I just need to make sure I get to the right one. Okay, no, I've gone to the wrong one. Okay, so we're going to go here. So the Copilot that lives in Teams is like an umbrella Copilot. So when I go to Outlook and I use Copilot within Outlook, that is restricted to functionality in Outlook. Copilot in Teams allows me to do some really, really funky stuff. And I can search through multiple Office applications through Copilot in Teams. Peter also mentioned earlier on prompts and how important they are, and Microsoft give you some really nice prompts here that you can use to get started. Excuse me. However, what I've done here is I've preloaded one. So let's imagine we've been on holiday for a week, we've come back in, and what I want to do is I want to summarize the last 7 days into bullet points of actions where I have been mentioned, refer to any emails, chats or meeting transcripts that I've missed due to being on annual leave, list the urgent actions first and who asked them. Okay, now that is not a standard Microsoft prompt. That's not something that's in the prompt engineering. That's something I've created myself and actually used, not this Monday, but last Monday. And it is pretty useful. I had approximately 300 emails waiting for me when I got back from a week's leave. There were 19 chat messages and about 14 meetings that I needed to catch up on. So here we go. So again, probably showing a little bit too much of my petticoats there, but and what I can do from here is I can actually click on the references and I can dive straight into that particular content. Okay, so that's a pretty useful feature within Teams. What I have also got is I have preloaded a Teams meeting that I missed. So you can see that this is quite lengthy and goes on for quite some time. Because this meeting was recording and the transcript was enabled, I can ask it to recap on that particular meeting. Now, what we've got to remember, which is really, really valuable for those of you who need the transcript to be verbatim, and you need that transcript to be immutable. So as soon as you enable that within a Teams call, that transcript cannot be edited and or deleted. So that's really important to understand. And the usefulness of that then becomes that we can then use Copilot to interrogate that transcript. So last week, one of my co-workers had a doctor's appointment that was virtual, that was conducted by Teams. And 30 minutes before the session started, he was sent an email that said, do you consent to the meeting being recorded and a transcript being enabled and Copilot used in order to summary the content. Now, I'm only surmising because I wasn't in that meeting and he forgot to ask the doctor. But if you think about that online appointment, all of the conversation would have been recorded in a transcript, but the doctor would then need to take all of that content and then probably submit it into an NHS system. So they could quite easily use Copilot functionality to recap the key points and simply copy and paste that into the relevant NHS system. So I've got a really nice little summary there. This was all to do, we have a technical webinar each month that we do. This is all to do with a really exciting new feature within Azure and virtual machines, and the fact that hibernation in the virtual machines has now been released by Microsoft. Okay. What I can also do is I can also ask it, do I have any meeting actions? So it's then going to look through that meeting and find out whether I was mentioned and whether or not I've actually got anything to do. And I'm really glad to say that in this instance, I don't, which is great. I always like meetings that I go to when I've got nothing to do. So those are two really useful use cases within Teams. Next, we're going to go to Excel. So really important, Peter mentioned in the presentation, currently the Copilot for Excel is not GA. So I've got an Excel spreadsheet that's got various different bits and bobs on it. So the first thing that I'm going to do, we can see that we've got a load of data. I'm going to hit Copilot, and we know that Copilot is not GA yet because it still says preview. So the first thing it's going to do is tell me that it can't actually work with the data that I've got in its current format. So it's effectively saying this needs to be formatted as a table, an Excel table, in order for me to work with it. Would you like me to convert it? So immediately it's converted it, and then we can start looking at insights and things like that. Now, I'm not the world's greatest expert on Excel, so you'll have to bear with me while I consult some notes, because I just want to copy and paste. So for each one of these, we've got like a little demo script, and that's done that. And what I want is I want to add a column for profit margin, right? So I can add a column for profit margin. Okay, so maths is not my strong suit, I will happily admit to. So I've not told it what columns to use. I've not told it what data to use. It's going to analyze that, and then it's going to provide me with a recommendation with regards to how a formula that would calculate profit margin. Now, obviously, in order to verify this formula, you will need some skills within Excel. So in this instance, calculate the profit margin for each product by subtracting the product cost from the current price and dividing it by the results of the current price. And then it does actually give me an explanation to go with that. And if I just have a scroll over here, we can see that there is no column yet for profit margin. And what I can do with that is I can insert that particular column. Okay, so pretty quick, pretty easy, and it's done the formula for me. So it can make life significantly simpler within Excel. I'm going to try one more in Excel. Excel has the tendency to go wrong more than any other. So I'm going to copy and paste this bit. So copy, and we'll go back to Excel. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and get the negative and positive numbers to be formatted as a different. So mark all items with a negative profit margin with an icon. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Again, that's the challenge of working with a preview product. But all the other products are fully generally available. So no major. Yeah, so unfortunately it said no, I can't do that. So it's good that you see it working and not working at the same time. So we've done Excel. Let's go PowerPoint. Okay, so I have a blank PowerPoint template, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Copilot, and I'm going to ask Copilot to create. In fact, I'm going to click on it. Create a presentation from file. Now you'll see it's used the slash and it's giving me my recently used file list, but I just want to prove that you can use the share link as well. So if I just go back to our PowerPoint demonstration, so we're going to use this Word document as our file of reference. So if I copy the link, brilliant, that's done. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the slash, and we're just going to put the and then what we might do is we might say use stock images from the gallery. And to Peter's point earlier as well, if you come across stuff that you use that you think is really, really good, then you really want to A, have a mechanism to save that, and then B, have a mechanism to share that with your co-workers so that they can benefit from what Copilot can do. Because, you know, Copilot's brilliant, but the most valuable commodity I have is time. So anything that I can use that gives me more time is absolutely brilliant as far as I'm concerned. And that's the whole point with Copilot, because I personally create quite a lot of PowerPoint content. So the ability for me to take existing content and create new stuff from it and then tweak it in a matter of minutes. I think usually takes me best part of half a day to create a new PowerPoint from scratch. So this is looking at that file, giving me the bullet points that it thinks it's going to create in the slides, and then from there it's also going to generate the slides. And for those of you who are familiar with PowerPoint and presenting, sometimes the hardest point is the speaker notes. It will also generate the speaker notes as well, so that you can and again, that is all generated by AI. So you can see now with adding the speaker notes. So you can actually tweak that if you wish to do so. So if I just pull this bit up at the bottom, so and we pick a slide, we can see that the speaker notes are indeed there. It's pulled the logo out of the document, and it's created me 22 slides. Last time I did this, it created me 32 slides. So again, different results, different things. But what I can then do is I can then say, okay, maybe I'm not particularly happy with the image on there, or maybe I'm not particularly happy with the font that's been used. So I could ask Copilot to change the font on all the slides. Far simpler than trying to go in and if anyone's ever tried editing the master slide in the background, that can be particularly painful. I'm slightly conscious of time, so I'm going to leave that one there. I usually edit a slide, but let's go to Word. So we've got so again, we can see that that's where it pulled the image from. So we've got a 1,487 word document. Do I really want to read all of it? So 6 pages, maybe I do, maybe I don't. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to summary the document. This is also really good if anyone ever sends you a PowerPoint deck, a slide deck, and you want to get to the, I get some that are several hundred slides in length. So what I tend to do with that is ask Copilot to summary it. And when you get a summary, you get all these little footnotes. So we've got the product overview, we've got the product features, we've got the product performance. Maybe I'm particularly interested in the product performance. And if I actually pick out, so we've got maximum speed, and we've got range. So I'm really interested in the range of these e-bikes. If I select the footnote, it takes me straight to that particular part of the Word document. Now, what I can also do is we can edit this, so we can make the summary more casual. We can make the summary shorter, so we can edit the document itself. If I click on View Prompts, I can ask it to help me understand, or I can ask it questions. So how can Copilot help? How do I give me a specific example? So what I'm going to do in this one is I'm going to ask it, is there any information about how charging? Oh. So hopefully it's going to look through the document and it's going to tell me how long this e-bike takes to charge. However, I might not have asked. Oh, there we go. So we can get to 80% of the capacity within 2 hours. Okay. So, Peter, have I missed any applications out?
I don't think so. I think that's I think that's gone through.
I'm just conscious of time. That's all. Obviously, no. I've not been able to. Literally, I could bore you to death for the rest of the day on this. Oh, sorry. I did want to show you. Prompt Buddy. So Peter mentioned Prompt Buddy earlier on, and this is Prompt Buddy. So this is a repository. So this is an application from Microsoft, from GitHub, and what it does is it allows you. So in here, that one that you saw me, which was the summarize emails for the last 7 days. So basically, you submit a prompt. So if you want to save it for your own use, but B, share it with other people, you can come in here and you can do that. So just to show you, this is the one that I created earlier. So that's the one that I did. You can even put a picture on there if you want. So I tried to come up with somebody thinking about holidays but being inundated with email. So this is a really useful mechanism for saving your prompts that you've sort of like taken a while to handcraft, but then B, sharing that with your co-workers, so that they get the benefit out of it. And that's what we found anecdotally with customers that have adopted Copilot. The best adoption has been through that sharing mechanism, so that that they're all, you'll find that people have that light bulb moment when it's like, oh my god, this has just done that, I need to share it with somebody. How do I do that? The Prompt Buddy gives you the perfect way to do that. Yeah, sorry, Peter, I'm telling
No, that's great. No, appreciate that. Thanks, Sean. And hopefully for everyone, that was really useful insight in terms of some of the capabilities of Copilot within those key applications. I guess just to finish on then, I really just wanted to discuss, I guess, Cybit's approach for onboarding and, how you can engage with us to get started with this. And for us, it's really, we sort of put it down to a bit of a 3-stage approach: assess, imagine, and plan. What assess is all around is, identifying, so what is Copilot for Microsoft 365? We've had a bit of a flavor of that in today's call, but diving a bit deeper into it, looking at some of the requirements. Really, the key thing in this one is understanding, your business's current pain points, your needs and your wants, and aligning that, together to make sure we get the best outcome. There's things we can do there around assessments. So I'll quickly talk about assessments. I've got a slide on the end of it in terms of that next sort of first step. But there's assessments around current utilization of licensing. There's tools around, looking and being able to look at things around your data and security. How many documents are getting shared, to what users, just so you can have that sort of overall posture of what that looks like before you go into enable Copilot within your organization. That imagine phase is then sort of enhancing, almost that sort of the power, the art of Copilot, how it works, the core components, enhancing that across your workforce from both a productivity and creativity perspective. And then that last stage in planning is really, how do we then run, a successful pilot, with you, things like champion users, certain feedback sessions and checking points, really to make sure that, again, you're really getting the most out of the licenses that you're trialing. I guess as part of that, things like, proving that value back through things like dashboards. So the Copilot dashboard in Viva Insights, again, helping you sort of maximize that value and opportunity within Copilot. There's some actionable and measurable metrics within there. I did quickly just put a note on there in terms of being able to see certain metrics. You do have to have a certain amount of licenses. At the minute, it's 25. However, there are still mechanisms and ways we can get some usage and activity of certain components. So don't see that 25 as a massive sort of stopper. With a lot of trials and deployments we're seeing, actually, it can be as little as sort of 5 to 7 licenses. So if that is the case, there are ways around that we can still look at proving value back across the business. And again, another great tool we've got at our disposal is these Copilot Cloud Labs. So these are almost sort of demo tenants environments that you can get access to Copilot licensing, really to, I guess, go through Copilot with some real world examples using things like dummy data before you commit to the sort of license within your own tenant. So if you are interested, there'll be, there's a contact email there. Along when you get the slides and presentation, again, there'll be some little feedback sections as well. So if you are interested, let us know. Depending on how much interest we get, hopefully we can get as many people access to this as possible. But yeah, please register your interest, and we'll have that initial conversation and go from there with that. And I guess quickly, just to finish on, the sort of first step you can take is one thing we've put together is a Copilot for Microsoft 365 readiness assessment. So this is a 26 question assessment that you can fill out. If you're an existing customer, we can sit on that call and help you. Otherwise, you can have the assessment and again run through that. And then the answers you provide will be able to generate a report, and that will really start that initial conversation and that engagement around looking at some of those questions about, again, where's your data, looking at things around the security and what compliance and security controls you currently got in place, recommendations to improve that. So it's that real, initial step in terms of the readiness to then look at the optimization on that Copilot journey. We are also interested in running a sort of roundtable event in person around Copilot, and maybe integrate that into things like maybe get a security vendor in there to discuss some tooling and some great things there. So if you are interested, again, you're as part of the slides, there'll be a little bit of a feedback link. So if you can register your interest, that would be really great. And then we'll be in touch, and we'll look to run one of these days again in a central location for everyone. So that sort of leads me again just to say sort of thank you for everyone that joined this morning. Hopefully, you got something out of today's content. And again, thanks to Sean for running through that demo. That was really useful. And again, just to sort of finish on any questions, we'll sort of stay around for the next 5-10 minutes. So any questions in the chat, we'll be happy to answer them. I'm just going to see if we have any questions. Let me have a quick look. So how can Microsoft Copilot help with IAC development? Sean, do you want to take that one? Infrastructure as code.
So not current. So we're talking about Copilot for Microsoft 365. This Copilot will not help with that in any way, shape, or form. However, Microsoft have 2 Copilots that are fated for release shortly. So the first one is Copilot for Azure, and the second one is Copilot for SQL Azure. In fact, there's a third one, Security Copilot, which is live. Security Copilot, you can ask it to reverse engineer a CVE, which is pretty impressive, and it'll write the code for you for that. Copilot for Azure, you can ask questions of Azure resources, but you can also ask it to create the infrastructure as code in order to create Azure resources. But currently that's in public preview, but you can only get at it if you've got an enterprise agreement. So unfortunately, I don't have one of those at my disposal, so I can't actually go in and register for the public preview. So I'm having to wait until it's GA. I have seen videos of its capability, but yeah, it absolutely 100% can create you the relevant infrastructure as code to deploy Azure services.
Perfect.
Obviously,
thank you.
You need to double check it because it's generated by AI, so it might not be 100% accurate.
Another question I had was around, how would you know when an item has been indexed?
Oh, the $64,000 question. So there are two indexes. There's a semantic index for users and there's a semantic index for SharePoint. The semantic index for users, which is their personal content, so OneDrive, email, Teams, when you go to the properties of the user in the window in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, it'll tell you that user has been indexed. However, the SharePoint index, currently Microsoft have no mechanism that allows you to see what stage it is at indexing SharePoint. We are expecting something, but as of yet that has not been released. We've been told that the personal index typically creates hours to create. However, the SharePoint index can take days to create. So you might get, no, there's no might because I've done it. You will get inconsistent results for maybe the first 3 to 7 days, depending on the depending on the amount of content that you have within SharePoint. And that all goes back to Peter's point earlier on. I'm sure we've all moved house and used it as an opportunity to get rid of some crap. However, we migrate absolutely every last scrap of data on premises into Microsoft Cloud without doing housekeeping. So for me, that indexing process would be much more efficient, much more streamlined if there was a data cleansing exercise performed first. Now, if you've already done that, hats off to you. But most people, when they move, well, in inverted commas, when they move house, take absolutely every last scrap of rubbish with them. Yeah,
definitely. Another question I had, and which I could probably answer, is what is the risk if I don't complete the sort of readiness phase and just purchase the license for my users? So, as I was discussing before, again with the potential risks of risky data, sensitive data within your organization, there people can potentially be able to leverage without you wanting them to, potentially external users, that sort of thing. An example that's used quite often is things about getting salary information of certain employees. So you want to make sure that all of that is protected, and you've got security boundaries around that. And for us within Cybit, that's a really important step, and something we'd definitely look to work with you on, to ensure that not just they're in place, but actually all of those features that sit within your license are really getting utilized to the best of their potential as well.
Just to add to that, Peter, there is a very good chance that users have got access to stuff that they have no idea about. Security via obscurity. However, if you don't do the readiness properly and you buy license, give license, user indexing takes place, Copilot will do a pretty good job of highlighting that lack of readiness pretty quickly. So that for me is the risk.
Yeah, perfect. So I don't think we've seen any. Here we go. Another question: can Microsoft Azure Copilot coming soon assist with writing Docker files and Kubernetes manifests for containerized applications?
I've not seen that as a specific example, but I'm afraid we're going to have to wait unless you can get onto the preview that I can't get onto. We're going to have to wait until GA in order to find out what the actual full features are. As as Peter highlighted with Copilot for Microsoft 365 that we're talking about today, there is a specific set of features at launch, and Microsoft will only enhance that. But for example, one of the things the biggest question I get, it's not summarizing PDFs. Yeah, because it's not meant to. That's not part of the functionality of Copilot for 365. So it may well be that Kubernetes and Dockers might not be in it at the beginning, but I'll guarantee you it will be there at some point.
Yeah, I've seen some videos already around, again, getting inventories of current resources and things like that. So some basic stuff at the minute, but as you said, Sean, as things progress with that product, and it's gonna.
There's only one direction to travel as far as Microsoft's concerned with this.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I guess that sort of, nicely wraps us up. So again, thanks for everyone for joining. Thanks, Sean, for attending.
You're welcome.
Like I said, we'll get the slides and recording out within the next few days. So thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.